Good day, subscribers, friends of the channel, South Africans in general. We are now on series 2. And in series 2, South Africans, we look at situations where consent is absent. So these are situations where it cannot be said that a person consented to a sexual act. So the first relates to a situation where there is submission. A person submits to an act or a sexual act because they are directly being threatened with harm. So if you don't do this, I'm going to maybe shoot you or cut your throat or whatever. And then as a result of that, or out of fear, you then submit yourself. It does not mean that you consented. Why? Consent, remember, South Africa, we said it must be voluntarily and uncoerced agreement. So in this case, when you are threatened, it cannot be said that you agreed. Secondly, where not maybe you are being threatened, but your spouse is being threatened, your kids are being threatened, or your property is being threatened. And if you then submit under those circumstances, it cannot be said that you agreed, South Africa. So without agreement, it means what? You were raped. So submission does not mean consent, South Africa. Then secondly, is a situation where there is an abuse of power or authority to a certain extent. That is, where there is an abuse of power or authority to a certain extent. And this is actually where, because of the abuse of power to a certain extent, that you as a person are then inhibited in indicating your willingness or to even resist to the sexual act, or your unwillingness to participate in such a sexual act. So that is the essence of the abuse of power or authority to a certain extent. So these are very certain situations, for example, where a person can be a police officer and then he abuses the power that he holds or the power of his office, and because of that, then you are inhibited to then say yes or no, or even express your willingness to participate. And in that case, then it cannot be said that you agreed. Then the other one is consent when it's obtained through false pretenses or fraudulent means, or I would say misrepresentation. So this is where a sexual act is actually committed under false pretense or by fraudulent means. And it can include, for example, where you are led to believe that somebody is committing such an act with a particular person who is in fact another person, you understand. So an impression is created that you are having sex with B, but in actual fact you are having sex with C, you understand. And also the other one is where a sexual act is something other than that act. In other words, you are thinking you are agreeing to this act, but then you are subjected maybe to another act, and that can be another case where it cannot be said that you consented, because such a sexual act is something other than the act that you had consented to. And then there are situations where you cannot appreciate the nature of the sexual act. And this is where the person, for example, you as a person, are incapable in law to appreciate the nature of the sexual act, especially at the time of the commission. For example, a sexual act while you were asleep, you wake up and the person is on top of you. You don't even know how that happened, or you were unconscious due to some or other reason, and the person, when you gain consciousness, a person is on top of you. Or maybe you are in an altered state of consciousness because maybe of medication, drugs, alcohol, or whatever substance. So to the extent really that your judgment or your consciousness was adversely affected, then it cannot really be argued that you consented. Then the other thing is a child that is below the age of 12, they cannot be said to have consented. And then lastly, a person who is mentally disabled can also not be said to be to have consented. So those are the instances in South Africa where it cannot be said that you consented if you submitted because of threat of harm, either to you or to those around you, or where there is an abuse of authority to a certain extent, where, for example, consent is obtained through false pretenses or fraudulent means, or where a person cannot appreciate the nature of the sexual act. So thank you very much, South Africa. Then, having said that, I will move over to our third series where we look at certain scenarios and questions that has been posed to me, and I want to just share my thoughts and minds around the new issues. So thank you very much, South Africa. Appreciate you.